When we released the alternates, they were so disappointed that after 5 months of testimony, they were not going to get to see the system through to the end and deliberate on that case. During the 6 months that we ultimately ended up in trial and deliberations, we had 2 people whose siblings died. We had one person whose grandchild was born. We had another person whose wife had surgery. We had sickness. We had one person who had to be released because she had meningitis. We had all kinds of things that that jury endured as a group. But some of them told me later that, and also during the times when I would check in on them to see how they were doing and how they were holding up, they told me what a lonely experience it was because they spent all their day in the courtroom. We fed them lunch in the courthouse. The marshals picked them up off-site at an undisclosed location. I still don't know where it was. And then took them back each evening. When they went home, they could not talk to their families and friends about what they had done all day long. They couldn't talk to their spouse about it. They couldn't read the newspaper or watch TV news or any other source. They didn't know what was going on in the world in any depth in terms of being able to talk with other people about current events. They were isolated from the world. When anytime anyone would try to talk with them about what had been going on in the courtroom, they had to tell them, you know, I cannot discuss that. They made a major sacrifice of 6 months of their lives. One told me a few weeks ago when I was talking to her about another matter, she asked me, when will it ever be over? Because now, I don't know if you've heard, there's a documentary that's being made, Hollywood is looking into it, all these things are going on, there's books that are being written, and she said, I just want to leave it behind and go on with my life, and they won't let me. I just want you to think about the jurors and the sacrifice that they're making. How much more sacrifice do we want to ask them to make? Do we want to drag out into the public all these bits of private information that lawyers find are necessary to know about a jury to make an intelligent decision about impaneling an impartial jury? And also, we were concerned about the pressure, as I said, on the jurors. Gordon mentioned, as a juror, do you want to be known as to Al-Qaeda as someone sending your comrade off to die? Do you want to be known to the public as someone letting off a white-collar crime person who the public and the press have already convicted and against whom there is such vehement hostility? So it's a major concern from both the prosecution's perspective and the defense perspective and from the judge's perspective in wanting to see that we have impartial jurors and that we're able to impanel a jury of people who are willing to make the sacrificial service that it's necessary even in a 1 or 2 day trial. I've had jurors in cases that were pretty much open and shut, tried in less than a day, but involved a criminal that they were afraid of and were concerned that that defendant knew who was on the jury panel. And that was raised after we had had an open voir dire. Everybody knew the names of the jury, and it wasn't even a situation where the rest of us thought that there would be any concern by the jury. So those are factors that judges have to consider in making decisions about juror privacy and protecting the jurors.
Tony, I'd like to get back to you. I mean, let's just give up, for a minute and say in terrorism, drug trafficking, and mob cases, all right, so let's say we have a confidential jury. What about a case with white-collar crime? I mean, they're not afraid. I don't think anyone was afraid that Martha Stewart was going to come back after the jury. I don't know, maybe she would, but we've got some of these white-collar cases like the Scrushy case, and then we're also having some large commercial litigation, some civil cases in various pockets around the country that are they're impaneling anonymous juries. Do you have any thoughts on whether or not it's appropriate in those cases?
Well, I think in the white-collar cases, none of those concerns about the mob or organized crime cases are present, and I'm entirely sympathetic with the judge's description of the sacrifice of jurors, but I just think that a certain loss of privacy is part of the sacrifice.